So this was not too long ago. I live in northern Mexico, and there were several 7-Elevens around my house. So I usually walk there to buy some Dr. Peppers, whatever I feel like buying. One day, it was a bit late and I wanted to go get some ice cream, so I grabbed my stuff and headed off. Before turning the corner, I noticed a man crossing the street, going to where I was going, but I didn't think too much of it at the time, until seconds later, I started hearing heavy breathing, gags, coughs, and even laughing from behind me. I was looking at my phone and didn't think much of it then. But then, I started hearing running. It was getting louder, like he was stomping the ground, getting closer to me and closer. I knew self-defense, so I was ready to strike and run to my house. But the sounds just continued. Eventually I got to the store and turned back quickly to see nobody there. He was still behind me when I got to the store, and I saw him in the corner of my eye. And if he ran away, I would have heard it. I honestly have no idea what happened. I have never encountered someone like that before, but I'm just so glad he never got close enough to touch me. This happened about 3 years ago when I was 18. At the time, we lived in a kind of strange city with a decently high crime rate. It was more of an industrial town. The only thing close by were a U-Haul, gas station, grocery stores, and a bunch of construction manufacturing type businesses or abandoned buildings. My partner worked at the 7-Eleven just a half a mile up the road or so. I drove him to and from work and picked him up since he worked the night shift, and I didn't feel comfortable letting him walk to and from. It was around midnight or so on one of his work nights, and he had asked me to come visit him since they were extremely busy. This was something I do semi-frequently. The side of the building where I parked was in a blind spot as far as surveillance goes, but I parked over here to free up parking in the front of the building, since I anticipated on staying a while. There weren't a ton of vehicles, only a few scattered around the parking lot, including a white, fairly new-looking pickup truck near where I had parked. An older man, probably around his late 30s or early 40s, was standing near the truck, and I had to walk past him to get to the building. When I went to walk by, he stopped me, standing partially in the walkway. At first I wasn't super uncomfortable, just moderately annoyed, since I don't enjoy talking to strangers. He started telling me about how his truck wasn't working, and he couldn't get it to start. I didn't really question it, and just dismissed him by saying I knew nothing about cars, so there was nothing I could do to help him. He was pretty persistent after this, asking me to come take a look, and telling me about how it just wouldn't work, how he needed my help, and whatnot. By this point I was pretty weirded out, since I said at least 2 or 3 times I knew nothing about cars, so I don't see how it could be any help to him. He also asked me what I was doing out this late. I told him I had a boyfriend that worked here, and I was coming to visit, and then he looked noticeably uncomfortable after that. I took my chance and I quickly walked into the gas station and got my partner out to come have a look. Without any hesitation, the guy jumped back in his truck and immediately sped off, like suspiciously fast. All in all, it was just super weird, and I don't know what would have happened if I got any closer to his vehicle, since it was clearly working fine. Nothing ever came from it, and I didn't manage to get his license plate number, since it would have been dangerous going around the back of his car. But I'm just glad I'm safe and okay. I live in Chicago and don't have a car since public transport is so much easier. I went to some gig at a bar, and after it was done, I headed home. My friends and I were all taking different rail lines home, so we said goodbye and parted ways. After walking for a bit, I realized how late it was, and it hit me that the bus I wanted to take wasn't a late night bus. It didn't run past like 12 o'clock. I saw a taxi go by with its lights on, and I'd just gotten paid, so I thought, what the heck. I usually don't use taxis because they're so expensive, but I was tired and just wanted to get home. The guy stopped without me waving my hand, which I thought was weird, but oh well. He probably saw me, and I looked like I needed a ride, right? I hopped in and he asked me where I'm going. I tell him my neighborhood, and he heads in that direction. I didn't tell him exactly where I lived, but I gave him the main intersection closest to me. As we start getting closer, he starts asking me about my tattoos and piercings. Whatever. I get asked about them a lot, so I just say where I got them done at. He then asks me to get a drink with him. I said I have a boyfriend, and then he starts begging me. By this point, we were about to pull into the intersection near my apartment, and I basically tell him thanks but no thanks. The next thing I know, he pulled over in a parking lot and won't unlock the doors. I look at him and he says to me, "The only way you're getting out of here is if we grab a drink." He then gives me a sinister smirk. I'm practically crapping myself at this point, so I'm freaking out. My phone is dead. I couldn't even call anyone. I don't know how I thought of this, but I said, "Okay, we can grab some beer and hang out at my place, okay?" I tell him to pull into a 7-Eleven, and I can buy us the beer. I get out and I tell him I'll be right back. He watched me the whole time. I walked through the parking lot and I went into the 7-Eleven. I acted as if I was asking the cashier to open up the cooler for me, but instead, I told him there was this crazy taxi driver outside and I need help. I didn't live too far away from the 7-Eleven, and I knew the cashier by name. He then takes me to the back, walks me out the back door, and eventually to the alleyway to my apartment, maybe about 2 blocks down. As all this is transpiring, his coworker kept an eye on the guy until I got back safe. I got home safely and I thanked the cashier a million times over. He said he was happy to help me out, and told me to keep my door locked, and that he'd try to get the guy's license plate number. The dude left by the time the cashier got back though. I've never taken a cab since, and I don't plan on it ever again. When I was in 9th through 10th grade, me and 2 buddies were staying over at my place, playing video games and staying up all night. Recently, we'd started sneaking out of the house through the window in my room. My room is downstairs, and my window is ground level. We decided that we were going to go to 7-Eleven in town. It was about a 20-minute walk from my place. The walk from my place to 7-Eleven is a single path that forces you to go over the only bridge in town if you live on the north side, which I did. Here's where things got weird. The 3 of us were walking and talking and paying no mind to anything around us. But it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. There was almost no traffic on the road. We then saw headlights behind us as we were walking beside the road. We thought nothing of it and carried on. The headlights came to about 50 feet away from us and then slowed right down and stayed the same distance while we walked. The 3 of us started to get creeped out and then started making jokes to try and lighten up the situation, but we were all kind of freaked out by it deep down. The headlights were following us, and they didn't stop. We decided to cut across a couple parking lots to Shoppers Drug Mart across the street and wait it out so the headlights would finally go away. While standing in the well-lit shopping parking lot, we saw a van come racing around the corner, and it must have spotted us, and it came to a dead stop in the middle of the intersection. We all watched as it reversed, then came in and pulled into the same parking lot. I tried to see who was inside, thinking maybe it was someone we knew, but I couldn't see inside the van. Then it started doing circles around us in the parking lot. We all started to panic a bit and started yelling at the van to go away and flipping the van off. Then it stopped right beside us, and without a single word, we all started running as fast as we could down the alleyway beside the Shoppers. The van followed us into the alleyway, and we hopped over some fences and ran through people's yards, eventually hiding behind some hedges. We waited a little bit until we saw the van slowly drive down the road, almost like it was looking for us. We waited a while longer until the coast was clear, and then we all sprinted all the way back to my place. We never saw the van again. I never found out who was in that van or what they had planned, but I'm just so happy I never did. This happened to me last year in summer. I live in a relatively good area near a rec center and shops, so there's quite some people around. One day I decided I wanted to grab a drink, so I walked to the nearby 7-Eleven. I took my headphones, my money, my phone, and went on my way. It wasn't a really busy day, so I didn't think anything was going to happen. On my walk back, I decided that since it was such a nice day, I'd take the back route to my house. As I was walking, I started to realize that there was this guy driving up and down the street coming from different ways. Now, most of the streets connect to each other, so it wasn't hard to find your way back to the place you came from. I tried to ignore this man and kept on walking and listening to my music, but he waved and beeped at me. As I was going to turn onto another road, he slowed his car down and started speaking. Being a polite person, I took out one of my headphones and started listening to him. "Hey, do you need a ride?" he asked, smiling at me. I denied his creepy offer and said I only lived down the road and there was no need. He kept trying his hardest and suddenly said, "It's okay, I have a kid in the back." I knew this was a lie because I saw him drive by. I could see nothing in the back seat, though he had a little blind on his back window for a kid to block out the sun. Again, I denied. I put my headphones back in and continued on walking. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see him pull into the same street as me and hang his head out the window. I got so scared of what this man was going to do, so I turned into this couple's yard who were outside raking leaves and asked him if I could quietly stay with them until the creep went away. They agreed. When I saw the man again, he said to me, "You're so cute, by the way," and he sped off. That was the last time I ever saw that man. I just hope I never do again.